Good evening. I'll call the August 14th Airport Advisory Board meeting to order. How is that? Get it closer. Thank you. Could we begin with roll call?
Jordan, Vice Chairperson Dan Easter.
Here.
Board Member Steve Shook.
Here.
Board Member Matt Gibson.
Here.
Board Member Charles Schilling.
Here.
Board Member Tara Menza. Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Malcolm got called into work, so he won't be able to be here. Let's see. First up is public invited to be heard. Please state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes. And direct your comments to the board. And we don't use the sign up. You can just go ahead. First one to stand up wins. Have I got any takers? Oh, and I see Matthew coming. You're it.
Good timing.
Yeah. Oh, got the red light.
No.
Always
no
just hit this one till things turn red.
Al Manley, 940 Rangeview Lane, Longmont, 80501. Good evening, board members and Councilman Popkin. A good friend attended, a good neighbor friend of mine attended the June Coffee with Council, and some of the citizens in attendance voiced their displeasure with the noise generated by the aircraft using the Longmont Airport. Mr. Popkin, yourself, and Mr. Dominguez, I believe, were present and explained that the FAA controls the airspace and there isn't a lot we can do about the noise. You most likely said that different, but that's the gist of the conversation. My friend also shared with me your vision of future possibilities at the airport. Paraphrasing your reply, you believe one of the primary missions could be electric aircraft development at the airport. I also agree with you on that topic. I believe you also mentioned that the airport is a very good candidate as a front-range airport that could become the electric airport of the region if it wanted to pursue it. I also agree with you as the technical talent in the Longmont area and Boulder County is well educated and very technical. Thank you for your support you provide to the AAB and the City Council Liaison Chair. However, future development at the airport could be in danger. In 2020, I don't know if you were in town then, well, the Longmont citizens approved a 30-year leases at the ballot box in 2020. In May of 2025, Mr. Brown, the airport manager, began reassigning the time remaining on some hangar leases instead of generating new 30-year leases. Mr. Brown started doing this before the June 2025 City Council meeting. Reassigning lease terms instead of generating new 30-year leases has a drastic effect on hangar investments. Research from a fellow airport investor shared the interaction from the June 3rd, 2025 council meeting, which I'll read. The specific question addressed to council by Mr. Brown was quoted, "Lease length and terms, does council want to direct staff and the airport advisory board to provide recommendations on updating the airport lease terms, including lease length?" There was a single word answer from Mayor Peck, yes. There was no council motion or resolution directing that new leases were to be halted until the results of the recommendations were processed. Councilman Popkin, was their intent to direct Levi to stop issuing new leases at that time when Mayor Peck said yes to Levi's question on June 3rd, 2025? And Councilman Popka, would you be willing to introduce a resolution at City Council to direct Levi to resume issuing new 30-year leases until new lease terms have been defined? My question for the AAB is, has the AAB been asked to provide lease recommendations to the City Council? If so, what were the lease recommendations to the city? And is a simple yes answer from the mayor the most ethical way to invoke the change process affecting a public entity and public-private business investments? A letter from the airport manager about the lease changes to all the leaseholders would have been a considerate and very professional method of notifying leaseholders of the lease reassignments. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Would you like to speak? Go ahead. Name and address, and then 5 minutes.
Hello, my name is Joe Friedman at 5723 Four Leaf Drive, Longmont, and thank you for allowing me to be here and be part of this process. I'm new in Longmont. Just my wife and I have been here 4 months. We love Longmont. We love our neighborhood, like the whole vibe. Many good things I could go on with. My issue today is overhead aircraft noise, and I want to share some observations and maybe some suggestions. Specifically, I'm going to address touch and goes, and most specifically during the morning hours, both the volume of flights, aircraft flights, and the altitude at which they're flying. Where I live is about, as the crow flies, about one half mile southeast of the intersection of 57th and Nelson. I'm directly over the flight path of departure flights. About 100% of them going down runway 29 make the 180 degree turn toward the southeast and then go overhead. It's not an isolated incident. I understand aircraft noise overhead. It's there. It's the volume. I'll give some examples of what I'm talking about. This morning, for instance, between 06:55 and 07:15, 25 aircraft flew overhead. They were coming every 45 seconds. I am not exaggerating. Then it slowed to about every 2 minutes. This goes on for hours, maybe 20 to 30 flights per hour overhead. Then there's the altitude. Many of the aircraft are below 500 feet AGL. My whole house shakes. And I'm telling you, many of these operators are not lowering their RPM, as is part of the recommendation of the VNAP program. This happens 7 days a week. I don't know what it's like to have a quiet morning. And it's gotten I've only been here 4 months, but over these months it's gotten very bad over the summer, and it seems to be getting worse. Then there's the evenings. Starting 7, maybe 8 o'clock, a number of touch and goes once again. Not as frequent as the morning, but sometimes very late at night. This last Monday night, between 22:05 hours and 22:50, there were 10 flights overhead. I could follow the lights as they went around and doing their touch and go patterns. This is vulgar. There is no reason for this. This really goes on in the mornings, 7 days a week. They start a little bit later on Sunday. This affects sleep. This affects peace and serenity. I'm in a growing neighborhood. More and more people are being affected by this. Here's my suggestions, if possible. I think the airport should limit the amount of touch and goes. I know that's in the VNAP program already as suggestions, but this is not being voluntarily listened to. So I think there needs to be something more as policy that restricts the number of touch and goes per plane. I think the startup time should be no earlier than 0900. I think the air is still dense enough even on hot summer days for aircraft to safely take off and land. And this would allow for quiet in the earlier morning hours. And I think there should be no touch and goes after 8 o'clock in the evening. There's no reason for that, for the community, that is for sure. I think if this were set as policy, there should be monetary penalties for violators. And I would also encourage our Vance Brand Airport to have touchdown or landing fees. The amount of touch and goes, they're taking, getting what they want. They're not giving anything back to our community, and they're taking from the peace and serenity and sleep capabilities of our community. There's thousands of people affected by this. I'm one person. As you probably know, one person can talk or write a letter, and they really represent many more people than that, maybe hundreds. But I've talked to my neighbors. Everyone knows about this. I'm not the only one in the neighborhood. And people will say they're passive about it. They say, well, maybe it'll get better, or there's nothing you can do about it. And I say, really? I mean, there are things you can do about it. You can speak up. So that's why I am here. The only, anecdotally, there's a matter of ethics and responsibility. I'm not sure the flight schools are teaching the operators to do this. When you have that many touch and goes over a community with no regard to their what they're entitled to, something's wrong with that. When my dad was, who's deceased now, was taking his instruction for his twin Comanche, and he would tell me stories, like dropping an engine and these things, he's telling these very exciting stories about that. Or when he was going for his IFR certification and later his commercial pilot certification, he would share stories with me. We flew a lot. I flew all over the place. I'm very pro aviation. I'm friendly to aviation, and I do like our airport. But there's certain things that I've addressed that need to be changed. But coming back, one of the things that he would say to me, he was taught ethics and responsibility within this instruction. And this is a generation ago. I don't know if that's happening anymore. I would really hope it is, but it doesn't seem like it is to me, because we have a voluntary noise abatement procedure program, and it's not being voluntarily listened to. So I hope the AAB can address this, get this to council, and let's take control of our airport and not have certain irresponsible operators dictate to our community the way it should be. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Do I have anybody else wishing to speak? Do you want to speak?
Thank you. Dave Kopp, 4625 West 99th Place, Westminster. And I'm right on the glide slope for what used to be called Jeffco, now called Metro. So I understand about airplane noise, and I live under it. And but as a pilot, we always look up to check out what the heck's up there and what's flying and what's all that noise about. But I'm also a big advocate for the airport. Everything Al said about the 30-year, you should be embarrassed by the fact that the airport manager did not alert you to all this discussion about 30-year leases that the Longmont residents approved, put it on the ballot and approved it, and now all of a sudden they're putting it at risk. This completely eliminates all the investment, future investments at the airport, because all of a sudden there's no reason to do it. If you don't have a lease, and you don't have, all you own is the tin shed, and they're very expensive because you end up doing a lot of infrastructure costs that ends up being Longmont's. And the bottom line is that you pay huge taxes, much higher than anybody else. And we've also got the worst costs on building permits. I can build a hangar anywhere else in Colorado for half the cost from a building permit standpoint. So I won't do another one. But I'll tell you, they're real expensive, and I don't want to donate it to anybody. But the bottom line is that the airport's needed. My granddaughter just graduated from Air Force Academy, and we train a lot of these people that end up with those kind of positions. And the bottom line is half of the graduating class has to be pilots. It's not an option. And so they go off to various flight schools. She did not, because she's in the top 10%, she's going to be in the Space Force. So a whole nother event, right? But the bottom line is that you need to support the airport. You need to be aware of the fact that you were left out of those decisions, or at least the discussions on them, and it's not a good thing. Now, I understand the noise issues. Yep, they're there, but I have flown personally over 200 kids, some of them over 100 years old, and introduce them to the flight, all voluntary. And that happens, hundreds of people are doing that at the airport and donating all of their time and effort at no cost. We've got angel flights going out, taking people all over the U.S. here that need surgery, that can't afford to get to where they're going. It's unbelievable the things that we do and donate to this community that don't get heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak? I'll close public invited to be heard. Next up is approval of our July 10th minutes. Did anybody find any edits?
In reading the minutes from last month, it seems like there's a lot of stuff that's not in the minutes that we discussed, including some discussion on 30-year leases and so on. And I know Kayla wasn't here, but just wanted to point that out, that there's a lot of stuff that didn't get recorded.
I was also told the same thing, so I don't know if there's a way to go back and fill in the blanks. I've signed them. I didn't see any edits to them myself. It is recorded, and but you're right. Yeah, they were thin.
I suppose that would be a question for city staff. I know that they are recorded. I know there's also transcripts made from them that are posted online. But I guess that is an excellent question. Is it officially part of the record if it's not in the minutes? So that would be something that we could certainly ask city staff about, though. Yeah, I can certainly
Okay.
send an email to Michelle and ask her about
Okay.
the proper procedure of that.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I was just going to simply note that this is relatively consistent with a lot of other boards and commissions. It's not meant to be a transcript. It's meant to capture certain kind of major moments in the meeting or decisions. So that's why there is a recording of the meeting as well. So that's all part of the record too. Just wanted to let you know that that's somewhat consistent with what I've seen on other boards and commissions.
I understand that, but I think an important part was a discussion when you asked Levi, what's the normal base rent? And it was 30 years. And so my question, well, I don't know if am I supposed to talk?
We haven't voted yet, so this is discussion.
Okay. Well, there's been questions about what was said in the city council meeting in regards to Levi discussing or looking at different lease terms and stuff. So I think that was important what you said, because if you were in a board meeting or council meeting, you would have already known that, or should have. That's all I want to say.
Well, could we ask that be added to the minutes? Would that be kosher?
I would think we could ask for the
Okay.
transcript and see, or at least put the transcript with it. The transcripts are usually pretty painful, but we could ask that it be with our minutes.
I
maybe
suppose
as
that
an
would be part of the
attachment.
discussion when we talk about minutes too, is like something you could say, hey, I feel this should be added to the minutes.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I'm going to make a motion for the approval of the July 10th, 2025 minutes. Second, thank you, Dan. Any other discussion? I would say that if we could get the transcript or even the excerpts, because there was a lot more discussion about noise abatement, all kinds of things.
Okay.
They were very
I
skinny.
suppose my question would be, do you want to approve them if you want to do an addition?
Yeah, I believe they are
first, or-
fine the way they are as far as just basic minutes go, but maybe we can get the transcript added as an attachment to have it on the record.
Okay.
I can request that. All in favor of approving the minutes as they are, that they do not contain any errors, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Nay? Thank you. All right, so I will see about a transcript to accompany. And see if we can clear out the transcript from all the fluff that's in there. Next up is updates from the airport manager, Levi.
All right. I got some basic updates here, and then I separate out, as always, our information items for the noise abatement program. So I'm going to go through our updates. I'll pause at the end of each little section for general questions and stuff like that. Updates. I'm very excited to announce that our FBO has a defibrillator now, and it's something that I've kind of been poking and asking around for a bit on a lesser end. Some discussions at some of the conferences led CDOT to talk about, hey, that's something potentially we could do with grants. So they actually put together a nice little grant program for all Colorado airports that wanted it, and they just essentially did a grant to themselves, and they bought and shipped out defibrillators. So it was really nice. Thank you to the Colorado Department of Transportation for shipping our FBO a defibrillator, which is now up on the wall there. So nice piece of safety gear. So nice addition to the airport.
So where is it? Is it in the FBO?
It's in the FBO, and it's
Area.
got the little sign above it right next to the fire extinguisher and the first aid kit there.
Is that in the hall?
It's
Yes.
literally right in that
the
main
FBO
room.
in the lobby. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
right when you walk through the door. So nice little, mostly saying that as a thank you to CDOT for stepping up, for, not even requiring any paperwork and just flat out shipping defibrillators to, to the FBO on the field is really nice of them. Any questions on that?
Let's hope we don't need it.
Yes, let's hope we don't need it, but that is a nice thing to have, just in case you do need it. Second update, just because it's kind of been an issue, and I've had several questions from airport attendants. Yes, we're having some struggles with Gate 1. I suspect that perhaps we're going to need to get a new board put in that. I think it has some damage to the main circuit board on it for the low voltage end of the system. We've kind of tried to replace everything on it, but that is currently on Weatherford. Tom Nesbitt's to do should be here in the next day or two to switch that out. Hopefully, knock on wood, if we can get parts coming for it. So just a quick update on that mechanical issue on the airfield. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So, I've been at the airport for quite a few years, and I've owned several lift gates like that.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had this much trouble.
Oh yeah.
And my question is this contractor any good?
No, Tom is good. So Tom Nesbitt is essentially the only contractor in Colorado that does tilt-away gates. He's the same contractor actually used at Leadville Airport. To give you some contrast to the gates I've had here compared to gates I had there, during my time at Leadville, and I was there for 5 years, I called them once. Here's a little bit different issue. I suspect that in the past we've had some brownout, low voltage issues at the airport. Tilt-away gates are particularly susceptible. They're high-end technology with very delicate electronics in them. So I fear that there's some damage to some of our boards. Some of those gates have been getting much better, you may recognize. Like if anyone recalls the last time Gate 4 has failed, it's been a while. That's because we completely gutted it and put all new electronics in it. So I feel that our issue right now is a damaged circuit board, a main board. My hope is, and I know that electric capacity has since been increased to that end of the city, with more consistent flow rate of electricity, with new boards in these gates, that they'll start being as reliable as they should be.
One suggestion I would like to offer is to keep the weeds away from the photo eyes and
Yeah.
stuff. Last week I was entering, the gate was doing this here. Well, I knew exactly what it was. Weeds had grown up,
Yeah.
to the mirrored eye, and so I stomped it down. But there's a lot of weeds around those gates, at least, especially Gate 1. So I think when the guys are out mowing, they should
Yeah.
put weed killer or something around there to prevent that.
And please, and when you do recognize that, please don't hesitate to shoot a quick call, email, just remind me, because I try to do post-mowing inspections. Sometimes things slip through the crack, but if you shoot it to me, it's going to go straight into my report to them too. So whenever anyone sees anything like that, please let me know. Yep. All right, any more questions about the gates? Good? Righty. Oh, I got some documentation for you today. One of the items that we have there is the RFI, request for information, and the packets that I handed off for people there. This is a request for information for airport landing fee billing and collection services. As the board knows, the airport was directed by City Council to look into the potential viability of looking into landing fees at the airport. One of the first steps we're going to do for that is just put out a general RFI. This is not an RFP. This is not a request for proposals or anything like that. This is just an RFI. This is just a request to see what company is out there that do that. So I just wanted to provide the board with a copy of that. It was a real quick document. We created it over a day or two. I wrote most of the questions myself, and it's based on my experience at previous airports and questions that we've asked before regarding issues like that. Any questions on the RFI? I see a finger.
Oh,
Thank you. I just wanted to also add that part of the purpose is not just to see who's out there, but to understand what the cost of such services
Yes.
would be. It's not asking for a price proposal. That would be what an RFP would be for. But this is helping us understand what we might consider planning for from a
Indeed, it's preliminary information that just kind of lets us wrap our head around what it could potentially look like. So what services people can provide, what they can't provide, and as Mr. Councilmember Poppins mentioned, general costs kind of start us to wrap our heads around that figure. So this is a very preliminary step, and of course, we'll come back to the Airport Advisory Board with additional steps.
Just because I'm new and I have no idea how some of this stuff works, are you, Levi, the one who's going to be completing the RFI and getting all the information that you need
Well,
for
it's-
this? Or is the board supposed to do this? This is, I guess, where I'm a little confused.
I can speak a little bit to this.
Okay.
So the RFI literally is essentially just this document, and of course I know you don't have time to read it right this second and go through it. That's essentially just a call out for information. So that'll be collected back by city staff, and we'll review it and kind of rank it and stuff like that. Of course, prior to moving forward with any recommendations, all of that will then come back, to the Airport Advisory Board before it goes to City Council. So you will see this all before it gets to that step. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
You said the RFI was completed very quickly. How quickly do you plan to move with a RFQ or RFP then?
That hasn't even been spoken about yet. So really, it is just a looking for information kind of a thing. Quick, easy document. And in my opinion, the cleaner, the simpler, the better. Gives us more general information up front. And we put it out there. It went out the 8th, and it'll be due the 22nd. So by that time, we'll have the individuals who are, want to talk to the city about their services, and we'll have a general idea of kind of what the landscape looks like.
Is there
Hopefully.
a specific reason why you need to get this RFI out?
It's an RFI is to my understanding, and I've done some RFPs in the past. I haven't done specifically an RFI in the past, and is really just not necessarily. This is the step you do when you're not sure what you're going to do. You're just looking for information, is what it is. So that's what it's all about. It's about getting the best, clear information that we can.
Well, it's the initial steps to a contract.
Well, an RFP would essentially be saying, look, we're looking for proposal. An RFI is literally would be, and Councilman Poppin, correct me if I'm wrong, is essentially just saying, hey, look, we want more information. We don't know what's going on. Let's get some information.
So is the goal to fully move forward with the landing fee?
At this time, there has been no direction from City Council one way or the other to say that. We have been directed to look into landing fees and investigate it, and this is part of that step.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I can shed a little more light on that as well. So Levi was correct there in the intent of an RFI. It can be used for a couple things. It can be used to get information just generally to inform decision making. It can be used to inform a future procurement step, if that and how you might shape a request for qualifications or request for proposal. It could be used. It could be shelved after that. It can be used for a whole host of purposes. This is to help us. What it does that's different from, say, like internet research or just background research is it's intended to solicit kind of specific information from key market players, even if it's not key market information at a moment of time for purchase or proposal.
Yeah.
So that's why these are sometimes issued, but I don't think it would be accurate to say that this is part of a step to contract.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. Any additional? Oops, sorry.
so in all the discussion with landing fees and so on, is the basic intent due to the fact that the airport has a deficit? Or, I mean, I've been hearing, we're running in behind, and is that the intent to
as directed by City Council, in their direction that they stated was to look into landing fees in order to better fund the airport, I believe is what was said. In their direction. Right. All right. Next item.
No, you're not off the hook yet.
All right.
Sorry.
One more, or however many more.
Quick question. I know that we still don't have a dial-up AWAS. Any notice on that? Any progress?
You know what? There has not
Stay
been.
the same?
Thank you for reminding me. I'll send an additional reminder email to the last deadline for that was it was supposed to be sorted out by the first day of August. It is obviously past the first day of August.
It did.
So I will send another friendly reminder to my representatives at the FAA and at my AWAS mechanics office and make sure that we're keeping tabs on them.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe we'll need an RFI for a new AWAS provider or mechanic, right?
Anything else on the RFI? It's the
That's kind of related
solicitation
to RFI, right?
for info. And then, do you feel like you'll have the time and the ability to present to us at the next meeting?
Depending on what information we get and when
swiftly.
and how much time it takes us to kind of throw things out, I would expect that it could certainly be the next meeting or certainly within the next one after that.
Yeah, it closes right at Labor Day, so it might
Yeah,
be
it's all the question about what data we get in when, and there has been no. I guess I should answer it this way, saying there's been no direction on exactly when that will come together yet. But I would
There's a couple
hope
of
that it
weeks.
would come together fairly.
There's a
quick.
few weeks in there. Okay, thank you. Next item on your agenda.
Next item on my agenda, airport emergency plan, which you also have a copy of sitting next to you. I would like to say kudos to Sandy Cedar, Assistant City Manager. I wrote a big, long, giant document based on a previous airport emergency plan that I had done, and she took it and said, this could be way shorter, and she summarized it, and I love it. I think it's a very useful document. I think it's very to the point. And that's what you have in front of you tonight. I noticed later we have on our action items airport emergency plan potentially for approval. In retrospect, I suppose it is kind of quick base to get this to you tonight and then expect you to approve it also. But there is a copy of it right here. Pretty straightforward, pretty logical. It's essentially call the police, call the FAA. Then it goes through some other key details, of course, as it progresses forward from there on the emergency, on the various other entities' responsibilities. Of course, with the understanding that you will need time to read that, are there any initial questions on that airport emergency plan? And again, apology for the late on this. We were literally editing it as late as I know Tuesday night, if not Wednesday. This was still being cleaned up.
Yeah, thanks for putting this together. I know I would like some time to read through it and not approve it tonight because I would like to go through it. It's kind of an important document.
Yeah.
I just don't want to rush through it. The question I have just off the top of my head is where do you plan for this to go? Who gets it? How's it advertised?
Primarily, this is going to be an airport document, for its staff of one, right? But on top of that, it will also be with the emergency services office. It'll be, a part of the police. It'll be certainly part of, the communications team document too. So it will be known to kind of the key people in the city. So it's
Okay, so people at the FBO will know.
Yeah.
They'll have all the important information
that
they'll need for it.
of course, with the approval of the city, it'd be a great thing. I would love to have posted on the website.
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely. That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
Okay, and then just quick looking at first glance at the first page, you have under when the plan is activated. It says this document will include guidelines to cover specific examples, including. Are you only including those examples, or is there going to be others? So should it be worded a little differently?
The examples there, this is just including, so the idea here is that these are the ones that we get questions about mostly. So yes, it does include these. As you read through that document, you'll discover that it has very good general basic guidelines for any emergency though. But it does specifically sort these out as some main examples and considers alternatives which might be needed for each of these.
Okay, so I'm thinking maybe like include specific examples, including but not limited to.
Yeah, it's not limited
Okay.
to, it's just including, yeah.
Good. Okay. Hi, Levi.
Hey.
Was there a plan before this plan? Is this an update or is this a reaction to some recent incidents?
Now, this is a new one. This particular airport has never had an emergency plan before. This is something that I've vetted out and I've written for other airports. Most generally, this is something I've written when I have a staff and I'm doing briefings. I'm like, okay, we need an emergency plan because, I'm not always here. What if Zach is here when something happens? And I've created those documents in the past. Here, it was never a huge priority because, again, it's a staff of one. And I assume in the past that's why there was never any created here at this airport either. But something I think is great to have. And for another reason, it makes just intercommunications with me and the city much more simpler as we move forward in coordinating with emergencies.
Yeah, it seems like a staff of one would make it even that much more important, but just a comment.
Yeah.
And then two more suggestions. Is there a way to have a link if a citizen sees an emergency or wants to know, if you go to the website, if you're just a citizen, you go to the website or the airport, is there a way to put a link to say this is what you do when?
For an emergency?
Yes.
For an emergency situation, I would probably always recommend calling the police department.
Okay, maybe you could say that.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're a citizen and you see
Yeah.
a plane go down, what do you do? 911, yeah, maybe. Sometimes they'll go to the link. I don't know. I'm just suggesting, just a suggestion. You don't have to take it.
Okay.
And then the comment about, is this a inclusive list or the examples you gave? Maybe you could just say, examples including but not limited to.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, yeah, you're right.
And again,
That's-
this might be something good as you guys review to have a list of things that you'd want to add
Okay.
to it. Yeah.
Great. Well, that will be one that I'll bring to you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll step in at that point. I had to write one for the air shows, and mine's 15 pages, and it had to be filed with the FAA,
Oh, yeah.
police, and fire. I
Yeah.
think I gave you a copy of that. I can give you another one.
I
if you wanna
remember
scrub
going
through
over it in one of the
Yeah.
meetings. Yeah.
So it was everything from morgue and where we put people who need to be notified, and where the closest hospitals and fire stations and all the different situations, how we were going to clear out from the air show with a high volume of people there. So I would consider that,
Certainly.
with that many people, that was an incredibly detailed document that I had to go vet how everything was going to play out, like he's done in this document. And then the city takes over communications. But of course, at the end of the day, it's a 911 call to start, and that triggers the city. They get notified, and so that not only triggers city services, but it also triggers a notification to the city when it's on city property or a city event or something like that. So I'll I think I've sent you mine. I'll pull mine up and then I'll look at it. Of course, it's exhaustive because it's dealing with all kinds of stuff and unpleasant trees. But the other thing would be a question of having a checklist for you or on a card at the FBO or wherever it needs to be that would summarize the highlights of it, that you grab the card, call 911, call Levi. That was what we did with the air show plan. And so everybody had a copy of it and they had it in their hand to know.
And as you
what
go through
to
this
change.
document, you'll see Appendix B and C, which is essentially that.
Yeah, okay. So maybe the flow chart even, but with some phone numbers and things, something
Yep.
that's a quick reference, like we know, in the event of an emergency. All right.
All right, any more questions on the emergency plan?
Yeah, so I've got, who did I get? Who have I got left? Okay,
It's okay.
I know I was going to let board member go first.
So I've noticed quite a lot of grammar errors in this for such an important document. Seems like it's been rushed out. Did you think over that?
Well, recommend it and also consider the fact that this is a city-generated document. It's just not mine. So, and again, it's a draft. So if you do find stuff, let us know.
Okay, and you said you had a longer document you originally created. And to me, and as someone with experience, that sounds it's a bit more inclusive than this. Would you happen to say what you wrote originally was more inclusive than the city-generated document?
I would say that I agree with when city staff came back with this document, that this document is much more usable. And keep in mind, this is an emergency plan. So in an emergency situation, not necessarily bigger, more stuff to read through is better. So I would agree that the shorter
It
3-4
seems
page
more like a
document.
checklist than a plan.
Yeah, but again, in an emergency situation, we're acting within minutes, maybe hours, and we're going to be on scene. So I feel this is a very usable document, and I would fight for that.
It's usable to an extent, but it doesn't have a detailed plan.
Okay, well, as you review, put that in your comments.
All right.
Thank you, Chair Jordan. First of all, I do love the idea of like making a very concerted checklist here that is even a subset of this. Yes, this is somewhat bulleted and succinct, but I think even like a very action-based checklist of like, this is the situation, here are the 5 steps that happen. And we follow that there. I see Appendix B and C, but those aren't really steps. Those are just processes, which are a little bit different there. So I love that idea. I wanted to also just thank you for acting on this, partly out of response to some of the other conversations we've been having over the last few months. I agree with a lot of the comments that have already been made. I want to build on Board Member Reed's comment before on kind of who this is for. I fundamentally disagree with you that this is an audience of one.
It isn't what?
It's not an audience of one.
Okay.
And I would encourage, as we continue to work through this, we start to think of all of the people who might be picking this up at some point or interacting with it in some moment. Even you mentioned emergency services right off the bat. That sounds like a key audience for this if there's a situation that's going to come from this. The general public, pilots, who else did I have on here? FBO, tenants, tenant operators, staff, visiting pilots. I think we should keep that, this doesn't have to be like every step that, a visiting pilot does in that moment, but they should know that what we have is a clear plan and that there are steps and key contacts there and should be accessible.
Yep. That'd be a great reason. Hopefully we can get it on the website or something like that too. It'd be great to have it out there.
Yep, I would second my adjacent board member here on some of the proofread here. I think that would be helpful. I would also suggest changing the post-incident debrief from just a Teams meeting or in person to virtual, just to give you more flexibility there. What is an FBO apron?
That's the ramp space. So the FBO apron is the the technical name for the large piece of concrete where the aircraft are parked.
Gotcha. Do firefighters know that?
Oh yes, and it's in our briefings that we do with the firefighters too.
Okay, great. Glad to hear that. When I look at the flow chart on the back, as we continue to think about kind of where this goes from here, I'd also think who's the intended audience of that specifically, because that's intended to be a very clear process. I'm guessing the airport some of these are, what's a little confusing to me on this is that some of them are actors and some of them are parts of a moment or a situation. So like incident and threat is an actor. I presume that's the airport manager sharing the incident or threat to the FAA or law enforcement, or could be coming in from different sources. Is that why that's a little bit ambiguous?
Incident or threat is just essentially the action that creates whatever occurs. So it's the starting point.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't see the airport manager on here in terms of the communication flow chart. So we're thinking about where you would plug into the process. And then I also don't see the general public as kind of an informational recipient here. So I'd be curious as to who's receiving information at what point, if you're not a member of the aviation community or receiving a confidential email or a police response. So food for thought on that. Lastly, what did you mean when you said this is a city-generated document?
So this particular document was generated by several individuals in the city. Even Harold wrote some on this one. So me, Sandy, Jill, Rogelio. It was a team effort. So there's been a lot into it. Yeah.
Do you stand by what's coming before us?
I really like it. I think it's a great usable document.
Great. I would hope so as the airport manager.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just a thought to add to this, in the way I see it organized would be, it's such an important document that we really should, especially us board members, throw some serious thought into this. And it should be easy for people to pick up and just go right to that tab of a fire. What do I do in the fire? Or an active shooter or threat. What do I do in that situation? I feel like if I were at the airport working at the FBO, I would be all over the place in a panic trying to figure out where I'm supposed to call and who I'm supposed to call, because it's not very clear to me. So I would like to see this document have some sort of tabs, like this is what we do in this situation, and you go right to that tab, because in a moment of seriousness, we need people to be able to just see a word and click on it and go to it and be able to follow those instructions. And then lots more, I just see the need for lots more follow-up in this. So, but I think it's a really good start, and it gives us some things to think about. So thank you for putting it together.
I can speak to that. I would recommend that we use this as the brief, and that your bigger document could be behind it for a briefing ahead of a fly-in, work at the airport, things happening, anticipating bad weather. It would be tornadoes or floods, which we don't really have, earthquakes. We don't really have a way to anticipate our national disaster. It would be a fire coming toward us, I guess, that we could start to prepare for. Hazmat happens by surprise, power outage. Everything's pretty much by surprise. Structural fires, so that's really the prevention side. But I could see doing this and then having behind it your more robust document for briefings for a special event specifically, and to the FBO operators, to the flight schools where you could train them on it. But I will speak for myself on your behalf, with the air show being 8,000 to 10,000 people and a lot of fuel and aircraft up in the air. It's only my job to call 911. There's no looking. We're not even going to be looking at this. You would be the only one looking at this as the airport manager, because you become the responsible party. But if you're on vacation and it's Steve calls in because there's a hangar fire, he isn't going to be going through this because it's not our job. We don't touch anything. We report it and then we get out of the way. And that is why I trust the input from the document. When I have to do it for the air show, I send out based on what I know to prepare for, and they send back and say, here's what we are going to do. And then they brief and they choose. In the case of the air show, they choose an active shooter scenario to respond to, because it best reflects a local catastrophic event as opposed to planning for a crash. An active shooter situation, which is also possible at a large event. But a plane going down also is in an isolated area, so they treat it with the same get out and take cover and egress. So I believe the process is going to be, you present us, we take a look at it, and can start with this, but then it's going to go out to the agencies, and they're going to come back and say how they would handle it and who you're supposed to call. But you don't even get to call people. I know I didn't. It was 911, and then City Public Information Officer was the only person who could speak.
And when we had conversations while we were writing this document, that kind of came as like, yeah, mostly I call the police, I call city management, and then it kind of goes from here. Kind of my vision of this is I hold it, in my hand and talk about this is a document I'm going to be interfacing with the city with. So when I'm talking to my communications team, when I'm talking with the Office of Emergency Management, this is the document I'm going to have that I'm going to be talking to them about all the time as we review things and we go forward. Just so they have an understanding of what I'm doing and then what they should be doing.
Yeah.
So it
is ambiguous in that we don't know if it's going to be a tornado as our natural disaster or an active shooter, and or a fire or an off-field landing. So the spectrum is wide, and it really boils down to, in my experience, that you get out of the way so the people who know what they're doing can do it, and then you have no authority to speak on anything, so it goes to the city, and that the city comes in, and I was told they would swoop in, have public information, but that I could, if I was the one who witnessed it, I called 911 and then I handed the baton to you, and then you handed it to the city information officer, but you were the point of contact on the field for the awful stuff. Congratulations.
Yeah.
And so it is, and like I said, I do have that very robust document, but it actually describes which hospitals and which fire stations and where the morgue is and where the family gets taken and that sort of stuff. So that's only for a large event, but it could also be included in there. And then you'd have them all in a binder and have them available for briefing.
Yeah, and my one ask is, all these ideas are floating around. Make sure, please, help me document that and get it back to me so that we can review those, please.
So I would ask the board to go ahead and read through and make notes, but know that it is a bit loose. The phone numbers tend to stay the same. The chain of command, like internal and partner notifications, that's going to stay the same. We don't have anything to say about that. The city really will control the whole process, and our emergency responders will. So it's really just, does this flow make sense to you? If you were standing there and something horrible happened, would this be how you would expect things to go? But just know that 911 is really what I was told. We just call 911. And as many people who need to call. And then that also gives them an idea. They can continue to get information and decide if they need to pull in from further away to get help to us. So it's, read it as if you're the one who has to execute it. And then we could take another look at it next month. And then do we have to approve it? Is that something the board has to?
To my understanding, it's something that we're certainly looking for, board input on.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. You are probably 10. Nope. Who's 10?
Right here. Okay. Chairman, you brought up a point that I wanted to talk about, and that's a key thing in a document is really who is the intended audience. And you suggested read it as you are going to do it. I'm not an airport manager, and I don't think I'm qualified. So I don't think I should be reading this as I'm going to be executing it. When I used to write documentation, procedures, I would be try to get really clear on who is the intended audience, who's the user, who's going to execute this. And your plan is going to be different depending on who the user is. So we've had a lot of discussion, and I see airport manager, fire department, law enforcement, EMS. Who's the audience, or who is the user or the executor or the person that's implementing this?
Again, this is primarily an airport document. This is so airport staff or the city for following emergency procedures. It's primarily what it's for.
Okay, good, thank you. So it could be anybody that's out there that's kind of on the clock or available.
It could certainly be anybody, and there is certainly value in having this information available to the public, and people can see it with the flow and stuff like that. But it's a guiding document for city staff, if you will.
City staff or airport? See, I'm trying to get clear. I mean, is Harold going to be doing this?
So
or
airport staff is city staff. So whoever would be in, the chain of command for such an incident. If a public works individual, if the director of public works is on there and he was looped in on some of these conversations too, and his phone number's on here. So that individual. Yeah.
It's pretty broad then. It's not a very... it could be someone that's not that tech savvy on airport operations.
Okay, well, yeah, it could be.
That's a question, sorry.
So what's your question?
So I'm just trying to get zeroed in on who's the user, and I'm hearing a lot of titles being floated around.
Okay.
and you say city staff, it's like, in my mind, city staff, there's a lot of generalists out there that
Okay.
I would write this in a much different way than if I were writing it for you or trying to write it for you. So I'm trying to get clarity on who is really the intended user. When it hits the fan and they're picking this up, it needs to be written in a way that that person can get through it and understand it. Not a lot of acronyms if they're not an airport person. If they're an airport person, have at it. I mean, I'm up here as a non-pilot, and there's acronyms flying all over the place, and I don't know what you guys are talking about some of the time.
Okay.
So it's important to use language that's appropriate. So if you're asking for input from me, I need to get clear on who's the user, and I still don't have clarity on that.
So again, the best way to answer it is the city staff. It's an airport staff. It's a city staff document is what it is. It's primarily, and again, there's other uses for this. There's other reasons to have this out there and known, but it's for the city is what it's for. It's for our chain of command, how we handle emergencies.
Okay. Thank you.
And keep in mind, if there's a hazmat spill, we're not going to be doing anything about it. It's going to be the fire department, and if there's a fire, we're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
It's going to be the fire
And
department.
as you go through
So
this,
we're not doing anything.
Yeah.
This isn't, none of us would be, maybe we'd be running and grabbing
Yeah.
children or something, but
and as you
we're
go
not.
through this document, you'll see a lot of it says.
So you're saying us, and you're not city staff, so
No,
that's
if
why
I'm saying if I were at the
clear.
airport, so I'm at the
Yeah.
airport having ice cream with my granddaughters and something happens, I'm going to call 911
Yeah.
and get my kids out of there. I'm not going to be cleaning up. I may
I
be
got that.
run to try to help somebody, but that's as a civilian, not,
Right.
I'm not
Yeah.
a part of this plan.
I got that.
And as you
Yeah, so
get
this
into the
is in the
document, you'll
city.
see a lot where it says the fire department is
Yeah.
in charge. The fire
Yeah.
department's
Yeah.
in
Okay,
charge.
that's
the fire
what I was trying to get
department's
clear
in
on.
charge, Yeah.
It's pretty broad. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. And as the value of the document would be then for events on the airport, especially an EAA fly-in, a family reunion where
Yeah.
people want to fly in, something like that. If they want to say, what's the emergency plan? If something happens, what are we supposed to do? He is the boss, or the airport manager is the boss, and then he would be notified. But 911, a call to 911. If they haven't heard from Levi, the city is going to get activated, and they're going to be they reach out, but they're going to be doing all the heavy lifting. We're just going to be standing around or trying to get out of there. So it is an internal document, an internal plan. So I guess what we're getting out of that is that perhaps some type of a notice of, well, I think that's out there though. If you see anything or if there's a leak, call 911. I think it's usually, and like on gas leaks and things like that, there's usually placards that tell
Yeah,
you what to do.
most of the
Yeah.
sensitive areas like that
Yeah,
have
and I think
emergency
everybody's
phones.
hardwired to know.
For example, the fuel systems
Yeah.
have emergency phones right next to them.
Yeah.
Go to 911. something
Okay.
like that.
All right, let's get Tara.
Right.
Sorry, me again. I just think this was born out of the pilots that were frustrated with the lack of communication. I think this came from that, and more just they want to know that they're going to be notified if there is an event that happens on the airport. So, there's an active shooter or someone pointing a laser. Pilots need to know that so that they don't fly. I think that's the big piece that I think pilots are going to want confidence in that the city is notifying them for safety.
So that'd be part of the NOTAM process as well, and just the decision, are you going to close the airport or not? That you are right, Tara. That is where all this came out of. So, do you feel this addresses the later communication, kind of like Councilman Popkin was saying, the dissemination of the event? But in our case, we need to know in the moment. So you put up a NOTAM. You change the AWAS if you can. And we rely on the NOTAMs, yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
that's our
again,
job.
go through this in detail, and if you like it, great. If you have other comments, please come back with those.
Good discussion.
You said that this document was reviewed by city employees, and you named them by name, but I don't know everybody's
Okay.
job title. Can you go through everybody's job title who reviewed this?
Well, I actually can't speak to exactly whoever's been through it. It was I generated the initial document. It has been reviewed, and I know gone over a detailed by Jill Liss and Sandy Cedar, who's assistant city manager. I know Harold created the mind map on it, but I know it's been in the office.
Who's Harold?
The city manager. But I know it's been reviewed by several individuals, including been reviewed through the Office of Emergency Management and everything like that. So it's been vetted fairly well. Again, it's still just a draft, so it's not final, and that's why we're bringing it to you guys for additional comment prior to it being moved forward.
Do you know if the city attorney reviewed it? Because this kind of opens us up to some risk if we're not going through some things.
I'm not sure, but again, it's a draft, so anything before it's made official will be reviewed by the city attorney's office.
And just point of clarification, Jill Liss is communications
Yes,
for the
thank
city.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? Well, thank you for putting this much together. I do think the call is for a robust document with perhaps the brief at the front, the meat at the back, and we could go ahead and throw in large event, and then you'd have a whole binder to have on hand. So it's good to get that done. And then I guess the question would be, I'll ask it on behalf of the board, the communication process in the event. Because the problem that we had was we had a NOTAM that was causing everything from commercial aircraft all the way to the ground to avoid our airport. And then there was no all clear because we didn't know. I mean, and you didn't know either. So I guess that would be, I would implore you to say, how will I know when it's all clear so I can tell the community it's all clear? And that threat wasn't something we could see if it was still a threat or not. So a burning building, we can tell, but with a shooter, we can't tell. So that was the issue, that the flight school is evacuated and people didn't fly because nobody knew. But that NOTAM was still red and glaring on my flight and caused a bit of commotion. So I think that's you run an email list, so I'll make a pitch for that. Levi does have a communication list, and you do have to ask to be on it. So if you feel like you're not, or if you haven't gotten the airport manager's update that he sends out on the first day of the month, submit your email to Levi. Submit a couple emails if you think that would help cover it. And then we could know that that's a better way, at least a more current and up-to-date way for you to reach out to people. That would work, I think. That would help. We're not going to get a reverse 911 or anything, but that would at least help. Okay. Yeah, because that was a different, I think the threat that we're thinking about was different than that. Okay. Any other last call for comments? All right. And then we look forward to looking at that next month. Next on your list, what do you got?
I guess the next thing I got moving forward would be moving on to noise abatement items. Anything before we move on to noise abatement?
I do have a motion. I guess I'll go ahead and make the motion, and then that'll open the floor for discussion. I move that we add to our voluntary noise abatement policy for the consideration of the FAA a saturated pattern policy that states we have a saturated pattern policy. Refrain from performing touch-and-go landings when 5 or more aircraft are in the traffic pattern. And the FAA has the abbreviated language for that. I trust they would give that back to us. And just if anybody, again, it's the easiest way I know how to explain it, is that if you go to the fair and you buy a wristband and pay $50 for your kids, and you get on that one that spins and flattens everybody, my kids always want to stay on, and they come through and unbuckle you and tell you to get off. And my kids would say, "We bought a pass. We want to stay on. We want to go some more till we throw up." And the carnival operators say, "You get off, you get back in line, and then you get back on." But you have to go through the line. You're jumping the line to stay on the ride. That's what this is talking about. That once we get 5 planes up, student plane, people practicing touch and goes, they have created a carnival ride, and the rest of us can't get on the ride. And when you're trying to take off, so this just says You can do touch and goes, but you're going to do stop and goes. You're going to do a full stop landing, which in many cases are required for certification. But you're going to come in and do a full stop landing and go back and get in the line like all the other kids and line up, and then you can get back out, and that will create the spacing that we would need to continue to let aircraft that need to land and full stop land, the aircraft that need to depart, get back up into the pattern. And a basic pattern diagram usually shows 5 planes in the pattern, and if you look at that, that's one on every leg, one on departing leg, one holding, one coming into base, base to final. So you've got all the phases of flight in there. So 5 seems a reasonable number based on that, and trying to keep that pattern tight. So the more planes you put in the pattern, the fatter the pattern gets to accommodate all those aircraft. And then you've got somebody coming in a turboprop, TBM, L39, some Phenom, and they've got to be at another altitude, and then they're trying to slide in, and they're sitting out and circling, and I've witnessed a lot of it lately. The larger aircraft are not able to get into the pattern. So, again, the proposal is that we add a saturated pattern policy, refrain from performing touch-and-go landings when 5 or more aircraft are in the traffic pattern, and that would be added to our voluntary noise abatement for review and potential approval by the FAA. Could I get a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Dan, second. Discussion.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thanks. We've had email on this, and I appreciate that. And I have to say, it sounds interesting and intriguing on the surface, but I'm really hesitant to support anything or any new policy that doesn't really have precedent or examples. And the emails that you sent me, I didn't really see any examples, tangible examples of these policies out there. Maybe I missed it. You did a Google search and sent it to me.
Yeah.
So I don't really want to do policies that don't have precedents with examples of where it works or evidence that where it's happening, and then any evidence that it would be effective in doing what you want it to do. And then I would say with this, we would need to know how it would be enforced, how it would be communicated, consequences if it's not enforcing. And quite honestly, we have a lot of procedures out there that are voluntary that are not being followed already. So I heard a councilman say, why do more policies and ordinances if we're not even following the ones we're doing? So to me, this seems like a little premature and without a lot of background and understanding of how it would work answering some of these questions.
Fair enough, and it would be the FAA's call on, we don't get to make that call. They control the air, so this would be another recommendation. If we don't have it, we can't do anything. We can't enforce or ask or request.
And I would add,
and we can't enforce anyway.
I would add, and I don't foresee any issue, but technically, our voluntary noise abatement program, I submit it to the FAA, so they would want to look at it and review it too. I don't foresee them having an issue with that, but again, it would need to go to the FAA also.
So yeah, I'm not even thinking about the FAA. I'm talking about what we want to do at our airport, and not really thinking, would the FAA grant this? I'm thinking, do we even want to do it? Do we want to put another policy in place that doesn't have a precedent, doesn't really understand if it's going to be effective or what it's going to do? How do we enforce it? How do we communicate it when our policies that we have now we're struggling with? So that's where I'm coming from. And then if we do agree with it, then we got to go to the FAA. But I think we need to put our own caps on here and try to understand, what do we want to do here, and do we want to put a policy in place that is, maybe I missed it, but I don't think there's a lot of precedent out there for this type of policy, and or even understanding of how well it would work and what the consequence would be. I get it in concept. It sounds like a pretty neat idea, but this is an airport. These are people flying around in the sky. We should really understand what we're asking these people to do before we move something forward. So I would suggest we study this and come back with examples and some evidence that this would work. So that's my.
Thank you. I got this from the Rifle Airport in Garfield County, Colorado. So it's their policy, and that is an airport, as I said last month, that has commercial. They have fractional jets, firefighting, and oil and gas. A lot of oil and gas with large helicopters and large equipment, sky cranes, things like that. And they have flight training as well. So it's a very busy airport that serves the spectrum of people who use airports. And I saw it in theirs when I was looking at doing research on landing fees, and it made sense to me given my kids at the fair. But it is already been approved by the FAA for them. And then I just don't have a way to search. This is coming out of this is a AirNav, so this is pilot information. When you're going to go to an airport, you look up all the things you need to know before you go there, and that is in their remarks, where they don't have a voluntary noise abatement. It actually says someplace here they do not have one, but they do have that. And that's to keep the pattern at a reasonable number of aircraft, so that the jets and the helicopters and the flex jets and all the other things can get in and out. So that's the spirit of what they're doing there. Again, it's an additional remark. They do use the word touch and goes prohibited. So they were able to get stronger language in there. I'm not asking for that strong of language. It's always going to be see and avoid. It's always going to be pilot discretion. Safety is always going to be number one. And this is, again, saying these are ways you can help us mitigate congestion and issues at our airport. But I will pass.
I'm not finished. I'd like to respond to that. So I feel bad because this sounds like a pretty cool idea. But again, I'm going to stand by my principle of, so you've got a data point of one. It's a different airport, different operation. And do they have any metrics on efficacy of their program here? In there?
Yeah, we don't.
So we don't really know. There isn't really a strong equivalence, and we don't know the efficacy. So we're putting a policy in place that we're not sure if it would work, and we don't know how effective it's going to be. Those are my words, but that's my objection to this. And as badly as I feel about it, because I think intuitively it sounds good, but I don't want to use intuition with, airplanes flying over people's houses or the airport, wherever they're flying. So, thank you.
Just to clarify, the goal is to reduce the size of the traffic pattern, which is to keep it closer to the airport, and that is, I don't know what their intent is, but at our airport, that's definitely the spirit I'm coming in, is, again, if you've got 7 planes in the pattern has to get wider, just like anything
Right.
else. You keep putting things in, it's got to get bigger. This is to keep the pattern within the known boundaries of it.
I get the intent. I think the
Yeah.
intent is good. I'm just
Okay.
trying to be cautious.
Thank you. Just a point of parliamentary procedure, and then we can get back to discussion. In case I think this is a point of clarification, really. The motion here would be, I would suggest that the chair consider the motion being advise city council to consider this, since this is not a policy-making body here. And that might also solve some of the issues that Board Member Schilling was raising here, in which case the board would be advising the city council on whether to consider this. Council would then consider whether to look into this further, direct staff to look into this, direct the board to more seriously research this. There could be a series of direction that comes from that to address some of the uncertainty or unknowns, but still, I think, embrace the spirit of the motion and probably the orderly process between advisory board and council here. So in case that helps smooth some feathers here, just wanted to offer that as a procedural suggestion.
First off, I'd like to question, as a pilot, how are you going to actually know that there are 5 airplanes? If I'm on a 4-mile entry into left downwind 29, I mean, yeah, you're going to hear a few pilots' positions, but it's kind of hard to determine just who's in the pattern, how many are in there.
When you're doing touch and goes?
Well, what if I was going to do a touch and go?
Would you not be able to see how many planes are in the pattern?
Sometimes not.
Fair question.
That pattern gets pretty big, doesn't it?
It does. So it's again saying you don't hang out and do touch and goes and keep taking up, do stop and goes and get in line to come out, so that a tower's going to do that. So if you go to Metro and Metro's got 7 planes in the pattern, they're not going to clear you for a touch and go. They're not going to clear you for the option. They're going to tell you a full stop landing. Maybe they'll let you do an abort, but they're not going to give you the option. So that's what this is saying. You can come in and land. You just can't start doing touch and goes when it's that busy. And instinctively, I was going to do pattern work a couple weeks ago, and it was, I don't even know how many planes, too many, and bugged out and went and did it someplace else. So that's really what it's trying to do, is say, if it's really crowded here, maybe you want to think about going someplace else. And so you do touch and goes. But you can land, you can do full stop landings, and you can enter the pattern, and if you abort, that's fine. It's not, and the aircraft police aren't going to be out there clicking and saying what you did. But it's just saying 20, we've had a lot of complaints about 20 touch and goes. And I'm sure you've sat and waited to get out. So it's really that. It's saying just do a stop and go, because then I get to go and you get in line and have to go like the rest of us. But full stop landings instead of touch and goes is really, and of course it's got to be brief, and this is all completely abbreviated in typical ATC style. So that's again, the spirit of it. Tara.
Thank you for this. A couple of things. Number one, I think it would give the public some confidence that we're actually listening and trying to come up with solutions that benefit both the public and our aviators who need the practice, need the training, who need to be doing the things that keep them current in their jobs. Rifle is a towered airport, so that helps the pilots know how many people are in the pattern, because the tower can tell them, like, there's too many people in the pattern, go somewhere else and do touch and goes. I think any experienced aviator, I've been flying with my husband, and we flew up to Greeley one time, and there was, even in the jet, we couldn't land. There was too many people in the pattern, so we left. We didn't even land. Obviously, if there's an emergency, you declare an emergency because you have to land, but we didn't even attempt to touch and go because there was just too much traffic in the pattern. I think the schools would be the ones to benefit from this because they're the ones that are consistently doing the touch and goes. So if there's too many students doing touch and goes in the pattern, then they would have to obviously go somewhere else to do touch and goes. So I think that it could help, in my opinion. Obviously, your question about who's going to enforce it, that sort of thing, is totally valid. I get that. But I think if it's voluntary, that assumes no one's going to enforce it. But I do think that if Levi has a relationship with the schools, like he says, and he's been talking to them about noise, this would be good for them. It's good for the students who are learning how to fly to get some stressful pattern work in, but if there's too many people and it's a pattern saturated, then I think it's a good, solid, point in the right direction to show that, hey, we want to work with the constituents on the ground who are upset about the noise, and we do hear those concerns, and we want to try to help alleviate some of that.
Well, I think the point of the touch and goes are to practice it like a sports person would practice a sport, or an artist would practice a note on a piano. It's to get that rote memorization of the pedals and the throttle.
So the saturated pattern policy says do all the takeoffs and landings you need, one of each, please, per operation, but do a full stop. Come in, stop, get back in the line. And it just will slow down. It'll space out traffic, and it is what the tower would do if you're going into a busy airport. They're not going to allow you to do a touch and go. They're going to make you do a stop and go, and then of course for some qualification for some qualified requirements, night tower operations, you have to do a full stop and go. So also a good skill, and then it just creates those, just like the carnival ride creates that space. The again, just a reminder that we don't get to dictate anything that happens in the air. The FAA does all that. So this again is a request, just like all the VNAP stuff is a request, and then the FAA approves it, that it meets, and we're not violating their policies by making that request. And adhering to this is on the honor system, because we're not the air police, and the FAA, it would have to be a violation, a pilot deviation, or a citizen report if if a citizen had it and called the FAA. But these things are not enforceable. We don't have airplane police, and so it would be low altitude passes are reportable, but they do own the air, and it is transportation. So but it's not policed like ground transportation is. So I will go ahead and reframe it. Or I can withdraw, and okay, I can also withdraw. And
You suggested in that one example where it's being used at the other airport that they use stronger language than you. What was that language?
prohibited. Yeah, theirs is prohibited, and they are not towered. So the word is prohibited for theirs, and they are not
Touch and goes
towered.
are prohibited.
Prohibited.
And would we
So they've gotten
consider,
the FAA to clear that.
would we, since it's been cleared there and there's precedent, would you consider using that language?
If that's what the board wanted, yeah. Or if that's what we send it to council to request that it be investigated by the city.
Okay, well,
Okay.
thank you.
Sorry, I did not mean, I just looked it up to see if it was towered, and it was not a Colorado airport that was towered, so I apologize for that. I did not mean to
No.
assume. So there was a different airport that was towered with the same name.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So-
And if anybody finds,
Sorry.
while they're out, if you see this in any remarks at any other airports or any other interesting noise abatement procedures, recommendations, Levi and I have talked about it quite a bit. There's an airport in Nevada, and when you leave, there are spots that you may not overfly. And I think it's riparian bird sanctuary stuff, and it's some airport in Nevada, and I think in Arizona, they'll have areas that you may not overfly. And then, of course, in an emergency, all bets are off. But Los Alamos in New Mexico, you can only enter one way and turn around and go out one way because of the National Labs permanent TFR over their space, that you cannot cross that space. So we and again, aviation is dynamic, and there are very few situations that are the same at any airport based on terrain, altitude, activities, other uses of the airport. So I would not encourage the use of the word prohibited, because we are not able to enforce. And if we put this in, get it approved, it's part of our policy, and number 6 enters and they keep doing touch and goes, the best we can do is get on the radio and remind them that we have a policy, and could they please do stop and goes. And that's about it. And it's really the idea that if the line is really long, maybe you should go look at another ride, and have people spread the love around the Front Range as well. And so I can go to Tara. I can go to Matt. I'll go to Matt.
Just wanted to clarify, maybe for the board, just from a sanity standpoint, I wouldn't harp on the language too heavily at this moment, because again, this is we're not setting policy in this moment. So I'd say if the board thinks this is a topic worth considering more seriously, that would be a recommendation I think council would welcome. to hear from the board on that. We can then decide kind of what's the appropriate research approach or what kind of policy language to start considering, and then probably would send it back to the board for input on that. So just saving everyone some time on like harping on a specific word here and there
Yeah.
on what the policy would be.
So the question is, we don't task the city with anything, but we would ask council?
Yep. You would ask,
So-
yes, this would be a
okay.
motion advising council to look into this topic
Okay,
based on this rationale or something like that.
okay, thank you.
I was just going to ask you if you were going to amend because I was going to ask you to call the vote.
So I'm going to withdraw my original motion. I'm going to present a new motion that is, I move that the Airport Advisory Board requests that City Council investigate the addition of a saturated pattern policy to our voluntary noise abatement plan. May I have a second?
Also.
Dan seconds again. Any discussion? I think we're talked out. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Okay, so I've got, did you get that? I've got Matthew and Charles nay, and this Matthew. I got two Matts beside each other. That's how I mixed you up on the mics earlier. So does that pass? So I'm a yes. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So that does pass. Then we can get council look into it, and they can find us other airport. They have the resources to do things like that, and then start to work on the language for us and use their resources.
So are we going to specific? Did I hear you right, that we're going to ask council to look for other airports that do this? We're going to task them with that? Is that what you said?
The motion was to ask council to investigate saturated pattern policy for Longmont Airport and the necessary language to include that in our VNAP.
And that's different from asking council to find other airports that use it, I think. I think those are two separate asks, and I want to be sure what we're tasking city council to do.
So
Seems like
we
that's our
can't-
job to
Yeah.
come up with other precedent, but if I
So
were-
I can, so.
This is basically like the RFI. This
So
is
it's
saying, could you get us some
essentially,
more
you're making a
information?
recommendation, potentially, to advise city council to then ask, potentially, the airport board to change, maybe, our voluntary noise abatement procedures to include something like Rifle does. So it's kind of like that.
No, I was talking about finding other airports that have precedent, because that would help me support this. It seems like this is a concept that's not really that well fleshed out.
I have no
So
idea.
who's gonna do that work to find the other airports that are have precedent and have efficacy? Because we seem to have a problem having efficacy on any of our policies right now. So that's what I'm looking for, is where's the evidence that this works? That's my objection. I think in concept it's good, but and I'm wondering who's going to do that work to find the other airports that do this, that have shown that it's effective.
Okay. I'm going to give it to Matthew because I think he's got the answer.
Yeah, I'll just clarify kind of how this will work here. So my understanding is that, first of all, like, you can't task us to do anything either. You're advising council to consider something. We're in the process of, if we think that this is an idea worth pursuing further, again, we can decide to take or reject a board's advice, not just AAB, but any board, with the exception of legal boards that have formal processes specified in our code. So in this case, we would take this board's advice under consideration. We'd then decide how we want to proceed. That may or may not include looking at other examples. That may or may not include tasking staff to look at this. May or may not include coming back to AAB asking for input on a certain part of this if we were designing specific language. We would most likely not just say, considering we are not policy experts on this topic, immediately just say, there we go, it's in the code. We would take an approach to think about what would be the most effective way to consider drafting a policy that would serve the intended purpose coming out of this. So I hope that is helpful in clarifying how this would work.
Thank you. And I did put in a request to AOPA to ask if they had information about other airports so that we could get that information. Our rep was on vacation, and I think it fell to the bottom of his inbox, so I will refresh that. And then I know I asked Levi to reach out to Rifle and see if he could have a chat with the airport manager. And I think you also hit him on vacation and couldn't talk to him.
So far, I have not heard anything.
So we can do that, and but council then decides if it's even worth them
I get that.
thinking about. Yeah, and then they could task staff with it to do the research. They can task legal. They can task Levi. They can. Sure. Yeah. So.
Just a learning opportunity here for me. Could the council come back and task the board to do that research? More of that?
Great question. There have been boards, including this one, that have done some research. I would typically, if we're going to consider a specific policy measure, I think that's where we would look to staff to initially do that, and then staff would present the research or findings from that work to the appropriate board or to council directly. So I think that would generally be how that would go. If board members wanted to do their own independent research and bring that to supplemented discussion, we can't stop anyone from doing that, as this idea has percolated from that very effort, right? So that would be typically how we'd approach this. Typically, we don't expect volunteer board members to be required to be doing that kind of research. We have professional staff who would look into that, present company included, who might be part of that type of a process.
Great, because that would certainly, I think, adjust my thinking if I saw, as I said, some evidence and some efficacy. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I would ask our pilots that when you are reviewing airports you're going to fly into, or say if it's a bad weather day and you're sitting around messing on ForeFlight, look for, I don't know of a way to search ForeFlight. I could actually reach out to them and ask to find that in their database of all the remarks. I'm hoping AOP will have something on it. I just need to ask Brad again. And then we can get some more information. And they may come back and say it doesn't work at all. It's a waste of effort and those 9 little characters that they type out. And then we can find that out as well. So that you raise a good point. So thank you, and thanks for the discussion on that. And again, to reiterate what Tara was saying, is that all of this is born from things that have happened in the last few months, and in an effort to do something measurable and to try to find creative solutions and look to solutions other airports have used to manage their air traffic without a tower, and make it a easier environment for pilots to get in and out of, and then with consideration to the people on the ground. So thank you. That was VNAP and Airport Emergency Plan. Did you have anything else on your list?
So I did actually wanted to go over do our noise abatement issue, and I do have some updates on that. So I'll get into. I have just a few quick items on that. If there's any questions, I'll pause after each one. Last time we did our meeting here, I mentioned that I was going to have conversations with airport monitoring systems about potential things that we could do to improve our monitoring and stuff like that. I did have a good meeting with them. They showed me some interesting things they had worked up based on our previous phone calls and discussions at the conferences. Looking potentially doing new pages that we can do that, just as an example, and this hasn't been produced or worked up yet. We could, have a voluntary noise abatement program next to like a heat map of the airport, and it would compare, how well our pilots are flying in that voluntary noise abatement program. We talked about things like that they could potentially develop for us. They also brought in a consultant, and we had the discussion that they could potentially do an assessment on a voluntary noise abatement program for us. Too, it has independent eyes on it to look into it, to things that we're doing good, maybe we're not doing good, if they have recommendations. So I asked them to say, hey, that's an interesting idea. Could you flesh that out for me too? So we have had an initial round of discussions about just some ideas that we could do moving forward. We haven't had any specific proposals from them yet. And of course, as that comes forward, that would come back to this board. But I did want to let you know that I had some discussions, and there's some really good positive discussions about things that potentially could be done. So any questions on that?
I'll go to Charles in a second. So to clarify, we're already using AMS monitoring. So you're
Yes.
using an existing vendor,
They
and
are.
then you're asking them to provide an
Yeah.
add-on.
And we're talking about new add-ons, new things we can develop potentially to increase, if you will, kind of the focus on, noise abatement and, stuff like that.
Thank you. Do you think it would come in, do you think it'll be something you'll have to put out for RFP, or would it be something?
I'm guessing it's something, particularly since we already have a contract with these individuals, which would probably come under the more affordable side of things, which is one of the great, the benefits of doing something like this.
Good.
On top of that, they're already the industry leaders. They were one of the first in the nation. Because of that, we were one of the first in Colorado. In fact, we're the second airport in Colorado to even start tracking traffic like this. So we're kind of on the forefront of fleshing out technology like this, and it's really exciting. And they're already talking about how excited they are, and they could potentially use this for other airports and stuff like that.
It's a shame our guests have left, but that we are doing a lot at our airport. Well, I like to go on the record and say we are cutting edge on VNAP programs, monitoring, addressing, looking at, trying to figure out what we can do. FAA controls the airspace. We have to see and avoid. The airspace is transportation. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just like my street is. But we are working very hard on this, and so I appreciate that is an option to use somebody we're already using and not have to get another vendor and another expense for the airport for that. So.
And again, as specific proposals came out, we would come back to this board and discuss that also.
And then over a certain amount, it'd have to go out for an RFP.
Yes,
later.
I want to say for the cities over $10,000, it would have to go
Yeah,
out for a
okay.
request for
And go to
proposal.
BidNet. Okay.
Yeah, Chairperson, I think you answered my question, but I wanted to clarify. This is AMS, they're our current supplier? or-
Airport Monitoring Systems is a company which essentially they're a database. When ADS-B became mandatory in aircraft, they opened up this data collection potential, if you will, and they're a company that kind of collects data. So it tells how many operations per year we have, what type of aircraft, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I personally, and maybe others too, would love to see what their capabilities are and maybe some demos. So I'm available, very, very available to look at that. And I don't know how this works from
And again, my hope
procedure
is,
standpoint.
maybe we get a presentation, it'd be great, and like bring it back to the board or something like that, what they're thinking about.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're senior.
Just a point of information on the agenda. The airport emergency plan. Did you want us to vote on it? It was just discussion? What's going on with this?
We're at first draft
Yeah.
to be reviewed.
I would say initially last month we were planning on having that out a little early. It took us a little longer with all the parties involved to kind of vet that out and get it. So I think it's probably be a little bit pushing it to vote on an approval for that tonight, in my opinion.
Yeah, if you'd already had it to review, then we could go ahead and make a motion. But based on needing to review it and then
Yeah.
asking for more,
I'm just very happy that I was able to get it in front of you guys. That was my main thing. I wanted to get it in front of you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Levi, quick question. When you were talking about all of the meeting that you had just had and noise abatement, things like that, and contractors seeing if it would
Okay.
if it was working and things like that, is that if we thought that would be something we wanted to do, is that money already built into the budget? Where would that money come from if we
That's-
were going to do something like that?
That's an excellent question, where that money would come from. And conversations, I've had, again, preliminary conversations. As before mentioned, we were one of the first airports in Colorado to actually do aircraft tracking. As kind of an unfortunate byproduct of that, we were kind of the model. So after we purchased our noise tracking software, CDOT then came back and said, "Hey, Longmont, that's a great idea. We're going to give everyone else in the state grants to go do that." So I'm going to make a case to CDOT that, like, hey, you're paying for all this tracking. Can I potentially use some of those dollars that you've promised for essentially this same the same reason, the same tracking, but can I use those grant dollars towards this? Is kind of my hope. If not, I still feel that it's affordable enough and it could potentially be valuable enough that it would at least warrant, fleshing out what it would cost, and kind of seeing if we feel that there's a benefit or not.
I mean, I would hate to have our landing fees pay for this.
I think we're again, I certainly feel on that end of I think the bigger ticket item we would be looking here would probably be that review on our voluntary noise abatement program. When we get into this side of things, this is the things I've been working on with airport monitoring system for years now, and these are relatively quick builds on pages and stuff like that. So we're looking at a more affordable price point on that. I've surmised from our initial conversations.
Okay,
I
thanks.
do
Yeah.
appreciate you making the ask for the
Yeah.
grant on it. Yeah, give me a favor here.
Yeah, I haven't
And-
gotten an invoice or a proposal yet, but
Yeah.
we're trying to flesh out. We're trying to do the most we can with the resources we have.
Well, and it's a dynamic situation. We're not the only people having this problem. We live in an area that's super conducive to aviation, and there are other areas around the country, so I trust they will have a body of information for other areas that are saturated with both being confined as we are by the mountains and being a ripe environment for flight schools and aviators with good weather, good consistent weather. I can think of a lot of other towns that are blessed the way we are. So we have a problem, but it's a good problem.
Mm-hmm. All right, anything else on that meeting? Are we good? All right. Second thing, I just wanted a quick reminder for everybody. Quarterly voluntary noise abatement procedure / flight school meeting is coming up on August 25th. I will be attending that at Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport. I am excited to say that feel that this is going to be our biggest one yet. We already have tons of confirmation from everybody coming to that. To my understanding, pretty much universal representation from flight schools and this time airport management from around the region. So that's good. I'll, of course, be bringing materials with me to disseminate and talk about when it's my turn to talk about that. And I have been promised from the new chief flight instructor at Aerosphere that they will also send representation along with me. So the flight school is also represented at that meeting. So just a quick heads up on, I hope to debrief more about that during the next meeting. And that meeting usually coincides with when I award the Good Neighbor Award for the airport individual who, most embodies the spirit of being a good neighbor at the airport. So something else, just put on people's radar if you have any recommendations for pilots who are good at the flying friendly and being the good neighbors, please send them into the airport so those can be reviewed. Any questions on any of that?
Seeing none.
Okay.
Anything else?
I got one other kind of quick meeting with that after the 25th is September the 5th, which is the airport managers meeting, which will also be at Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport. That's going to be, they kind of got that set up now, so we're doing VNAP and then a follow-up meeting, which is the airport management is kind of like a post brief, so that's kind of coincides. But the 25th and the 5th, those meetings will be. And so next time I'll be able to debrief on both of those meetings, so that'll be great.
I think the VNAP is flight schools and instructors are really the ones that need it the
Yes,
most. They're the ones.
that's the focus.
That's
Yes.
the ones.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have it printed on a hammer or something. I don't know. That's really it.
And that's all I have for the noise abatement program update.
All right. Anything else on your action items?
That's all I have.
All right. Next would be our public invited to be heard. First call, second call. Closing the public invited to be heard. We now have board, city council, and staff comments. So I will look around. I have a couple things I need to talk about, but Tara, do you have anything?
Almost.
Oh, okay. Just a quick question. I kind of heard through the rumor mill pilot pipeline that Jeff Coleman was hired to work out at the airport. Is there, just so that I'm not getting rumor information, can you tell me what's going on with that and
No.
where I just didn't see that in the budget for this year, and people are complaining the airport. I mean, we've had people complain the airport's not making money. We don't have any money, so I'm just trying to figure out what is going on.
We had AMCG, which is his company, do some consulting for us. In fact, we've always kind of off and on over the last few years had them doing consulting for us. Most recently, they did a little bit on potential lease work on when we started this process with looking into the leases. So they've been doing some advising and stuff like that on a very small scale.
Okay, so he was just here and hired to advise about the leases.
He might have been in the airport. He is a private pilot and flies in and out quite a bit.
Oh, okay. So he was or was not hired,
So he has
Okay.
at various times over the last few years.
but not recently.
Probably about a month or so ago, he did some stuff for us. But before that, it was probably
Okay.
3 or 4 months before that.
Okay.
So we've used AMC&G quite a bit off and on.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Thanks.
Thank you.
One of the things that I'm a little concerned with is not only the budget, but with the fact that the city is wanting to look at landing fees to generate income and lease terms and all that. As a board, we never get financials. And I would like to make a motion that we receive monthly financial information on a monthly basis.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second.
Again, kind of the point of order before, it would be a motion
the-
to advise council to,
Yeah, because
that,
that
right?
is, I do know that that's why we don't, because David used to have to extrapolate all that to produce a report for us. I said recently, I feel guilty for all the times I called him out on number errors and things. I didn't know he hand-built that financial report for us that we used to get. They don't have a way to just pull a P&L or something for us. So it took quite a bit of effort to put that together. But again,
Well, if
we're
we're
flying
being
blind
asked
without it.
to
Yeah.
advise on landing fees and different things, we're shooting in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
And, I know sometimes, I don't know where you saw the budget because I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's in-
It's online.
Oh, it's online.
I have it up on my laptop. Right
Okay. Some of us aren't that smart. But, I'd like to see if we're 60,000 or whatever in debt, I'd like to see where that money is going and how can we advise to make a cut or whatever, or advise the city council or Levi or somebody on different cuts to get that deficit down. It's not all that much, but we don't want it to keep growing. And I mean, if we can get that to zero, what would the need for landing fees be? Which let's do what we can to get rid of some of this stuff.
Yeah, we did used to get every month. We got a last year, this year, and then the projected budget. But I did not realize that was a manual effort by the airport manager. And in the interim, then we stopped getting that report, and that's how I found out how labor intensive it was. But we could go with your motion to ask council if we could have a budget prepared for us.
Well, I ran a multi-million-dollar business and it was pushing a button.
I know it's not here. It's not.
So, I mean, it's
Yeah.
not that
But the
hard.
budgets are, yeah, it's government. So the budgets are up in the council agendas, and you can get it. But you do see we appear in like 37 different places in budgets because they're going to take salary and they're going to take overhead and transportation, and they take a lot of stuff. We'd be looking, I think, for more of a simplified P&L. What are we taking in? Where's it coming from?
I
and
don't
then
think
what's-
that's right. I think we deserve the whole picture.
Right, but is it not, because we got it broken out by how much went into his Social Security and how much he was reimbursed for meals, and we got, as opposed to like lump expenses, G&A expenses, overhead expenses, things, that.
We have one of the people who show up on a monthly basis. He's not here tonight.
He knows more
But
than we
he's
do.
always
Yeah,
asking
that's true.
for, information.
Yep,
So
that's true.
I think we need to start looking into that. So we have that at our,
So let's continue the conversation.
I'd like to make a comment. I can agree on. Let me just rant a little bit, and this is probably more directed at Matthew than anybody else because he represents the council, but it's not you personally. But holy smokes, yeah, trying to get information out of the city as a citizen, it just baffled me. And now I'm on this board and I'm responsible for making decisions, and we're shooting in the dark. And I'm kind of getting some empathy for council when I'm watching them make decisions, and they're up there wide-eyed, and they get a packet 5 minutes. So it gives me some perspective, but I'm not on council, and I'm not juggling a million things like council. This is a pretty focused activity. There's a lot going on. There's it's a hornet's nest right now as far as I'm concerned, but I digress. I completely think we deserve some information, and it's not just the budget. This is a little bit of a rant. It's like we're asked to comment on a lot of stuff. The hangars, it's like, what's a hangar? How many are there? What's the rent? You hear all this rant about it, and I'm just sitting here like bright-eyed going, I don't know. And I ask certain people, how do I get information about it? It's like, I don't know. Sorry, I'm being flip. I don't mean to be derogatory, but I am. Sorry. So I completely support that, and I think I do understand that if they're in a million different places, that's difficult. But, it is 2025. We got computers. We got AI. We got all kinds of stuff. The city probably needs to step up and give their boards the information they need to make informed decisions. And it doesn't just end at the budget, but I think the budget's a good start. And if our systems aren't tuned up for that, figure it out. Sorry. So thank you for listening. I support your motion. And then some.
I touched on this last meeting, but Senate sponsored a bill 2175, which essentially restricts the usage of ADS-B for tracking pilots, particularly to do things like assess fees for landing and takeoff. That bill has, and part of the addendums and regulations within that bill state specifically that the owner and or operator of any airport must do everything else that is possible, and the assessment of fees is a last resort. So any other method of creating revenue is preferable other than assessment of fees for landing and takeoff. As a point of information, that bill was introduced in June, the beginning of June, I think it was June 6th. And at the beginning of this month, it passed from the Senate to the House. So it's moving very quickly. And I think any conversation that we may be having or the council may be having regarding the assessment of fees should be held in abeyance until that particular bill is either passed or fails. Because we're describing an elephant, but the elephant may not be there. It may be invisible. So, point of comment.
Could I get some clarity on that, just in the spirit of fully understanding? So are you saying that we really ought to figure out this bill before we put ask for landing fees or put policy? We should understand bills before we put policies in place that may be affected by the bill. And again, it's just understanding. I don't really have a strong opinion.
What I'm saying is this. The bill would restrict the owner-operator's ability to assess fees until they exhaust all other sources of revenue. So, again, we're putting the cart before the horse when we have these discussions. Yeah, yeah, and the bill is 4 or 5 pages, very simple to read and understand. How the hell I got into the U.S. government, I have no idea, but that's it's there and it's plain.
Well, a couple things to clarify. First, Board Member Schilling, we actually get our packets at least 5 days in advance usually, so we actually have some time to review and ask questions.
So you do get a packet?
We get an immense packet, and those are virtually always public, with the exception of executive sessions. Yeah, and I understand that, and I think, you know what, so a couple things on this. One, I appreciate the board's interest in trying to have a better sense of the full picture. I don't think that's an unreasonable statement. I will remind the board that, like, we're not tasking you to solve every single problem there, but I appreciate some of the members who want to be more proactive here. So there are a couple of things. There are two things that I'll do from this. One, Levi, this is not direction from council at this moment, but I'll chat with my fellow council members, and we should think about how much information this board should need to actually serve the job of advising you and council. And so, and just speaking from experience, having served on and being on other boards, there is quite significant amount of information sometimes that's provided in advance. And I would suggest, and this is going to be a comment I was going to make anyway, that items like the emergency plan, I know you were just finishing up on Tuesday, but items like the emergency plan, the RFI, those be added to these packets going forward. Most other boards that I've seen have that. And it's usually days in advance, if not a week. Planning and Zoning Commission, for instance, when I was on that for 2 years, we got a packet a week in advance. We were, I think, legally required to, because we had legally binding decisions sometimes. But those are, that information was prepared in advance. And it doesn't always have to be a whole journey, but, I think we should think about how you are setting this board up to be effective and helpful.
And that's definitely the ideal situation. Both these documents just happen to be, come out in like the last 5 days. Or business days, anyway.
Sure. The RFI was in the works for a while and was published on the 8th.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I think you understand the point. Again, not direction at this moment, but let me also take this broader question to our council liaison group chat that we have, or like meetings that we have monthly, where we share out topics and questions that come from the boards, so I can cross-reference to understand, to make sure I'm not overstepping here, and also understand what other council members are seeing on other boards there. I don't think it was an unreasonable question and a request, and some of that information is online in different places. I agree that it's not always the most conducive to clear observation there. We are just going through budget season, which will be my first time going through budget season on council as well, so there'll be a lot of those packets also put out for public presentation. So just as an FYI to anyone who's interested, I don't know exactly how that's all organized yet, but that should be coming out in future meetings as we go as well. But I do understand where that request is coming from, and let me go and report back. Yep.
Thank you. And like I said, we did used to get one, but the airport manager had to build it. So, and we did get it in our packet. So City of Longmont, if you look at City of Longmont, City Council, or agendas, it'll lead you to the agenda portal. And then when you go there, it has all the meetings, and you can look at housing and transportation, or the museum board. You can look at anybody's packets, and those are out there, and then ours is out there as well when it comes up. So it was always included in our packet in the past, but again, it was labor intensive, and it fell by the wayside when David passed away. So, and it wasn't picked back up because it was pretty heavy lift for the airport manager to be doing all that. So hopefully we can get some resolution with the city. We do have a motion. We are at the second half. I don't know that that's, do we have to have a, yeah, we're kind of in the wrong place in the agenda for motions, but in the spirit of being renegades, may I ask for a vote on if you would like us to ask council if we can get our financial numbers included in our packet? All in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. So that passes.
Quick question. So I support it. Just in this, I'm trying to understand, are we not supposed to be doing motions toward the end?
We do them at the beginning.
Okay, so was this, well,
This
I
is
guess,
comments, yeah.
I have one more comment to Levi. I was flying the other day while I was taxiing. I saw quite a few more prairie dogs.
Where specific area did you see them?
Between the ramp and 2-9.
Between the ramp and 2-9?
Yeah, right along Alpha.
Okay.
That whole area was
Did you see prairie dogs themselves or prairie dog holes?
No.
Holes?
5 or 6 of them within a short, small distance.
So actual prairie
Yeah,
dogs, not
yeah,
prairie dog holes?
yep.
Okay. That's good. That's one we've been keeping on top of. In fact, we had an assessment done, I want to say it's a month and a half ago now
This
by
was
the
last
wildlife.
week.
Yeah.
At least 5.
Whenever you see additional ones, particularly if you see them in new areas, make sure you let us know. We just had a treatment on I want to say it's the 5th. We do subcontract with a company that comes and treats. So the city flags areas to do. Our most recent, we pick a concentration spot, and that's why I say always let us know where if you feel like you're seeing more in one spot. So last concentration spot we picked was out kind of on the southwest corner. We found the most holes, did a concentration on that and had that treated. Traditionally, also the southeast corner by the approach into 2-9 tends to have a higher population, so we've been kind of switching that. But we do contract with the services done that. The last assessment we had, the city, they felt like we were keeping on top of it. But whenever you see stuff, always let us know. Just make sure, nothing's slipping through the cracks.
Thank you. I just had one question. Levi, when I shared that Councilmember Christ and I had gone to the Centennial Airport's electric aviation demonstration, I think I'd also mentioned that we talked to some folks from CDOT who mentioned some of the aviation grant funding that's coming up. And so I was just wondering if there's been any update on whether you've had conversations on that yet, or if you have a sense of timeline for whether there be grant funding for some of the infrastructure improvements that we were talking about.
There's been some brief conversations back and forth, and CIP season is starting, so we'll start talking more about projects and grants and stuff like that coming up here within the next couple months. I'll start preliminary discussions with our engineers probably in the next week or two about what we want those meetings to start looking like. Specific grants, the ones that are going to be most immediately available are going to be for unleaded fuel transition. There's, to my knowledge, one.
That wasn't the sense I got from CDOT when I was talking to them directly.
What sense did you get?
That they will fund some of the exact infrastructure we were talking about.
Okay. Well, I'd love more information on that if you got it.
Okay. They said to just contact them directly. So,
Okay. Yep, I've got a pretty good working relationship with them. One thing that they have made crystal clear is that their dollars are discretionary. So the relationship that we build with them is very important.
Absolutely. I certainly see that. I will also just note from a process standpoint, I understand we're going into capital budgeting season and planning is important there, but as a former grant writer for municipalities, I will just note that working around and in service of some of those grant deadlines does matter too. So
certainly.
I would just encourage us to make sure that we are clear on when they're going to be opening that up, when it's due, so that we can also plan strategically to pursue that. I know Longmont has gotten those grant funds in the past as well, so I know that's not a strange process particularly to you. Just want to make sure that we're on the ball there.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, one of our last big projects, our ramp project, was all discretionary grant money we got from CDOT. So
Great.
yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great segue. Is that done?
Oh boy. Yeah.
Sorry.
So you know what? I'm glad you mentioned that. That's something I should have put on my updates. So the ramp rehabilitation project is supposed to be 16 days. We extended it to 20. It took them 3 months out there. They only completed 3 out of 5 phases and essentially abandoned the work. And so it's all caught up in litigation currently. I want to say something like 15% of the work they did was acceptable. So it's caught up in the court case right now. Well, I should not say that. That is inaccurate. It is caught up with city management and the lawyers and the bonding company and that at the moment. So more for that to come. I asked for an update 2 days ago on that, and I was told that the city is working through it and they will let me know as things progress forward. I expressed my one major concern for that was excuse me, was that we've already been inconvenienced enough for something that was supposed to be a 16-day project. I would really like to, within the realm of what is possible, make sure that the bonding company, the engineers understand that we would like to move forward with it as quickly as we possibly can. So that was my main concern.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Any other? Oh, you've got your light on.
We talked a lot about what you just discussed on the contract, an RFI, the leases, and yet the city attorney is nowhere to be found, and these are all legal matters. I think it would be very helpful if Councilman Popkin can try and persuade the city attorney to come to a meeting or even present something so we can have a discussion and the public can also hear the city attorney's side to the leases, since that is a cause of concern.
Is that something we can request? To have somebody from legal be here? Or give us or I know it's also not a static situation. Those are private negotiations on those leases. Yeah, I guess what we can do is ask Levi for updates, and then he can wrestle the resources for that.
Well, I'm not saying that the city attorney discuss a person's individual lease. I'm just saying the entire lease process. I think that there's some confusion. I understand it very well, but the public may not.
As it's an interesting question. I appreciate you asking. I'll think about it. Partly because City Council has not asked this board for comments on leases at this time, and the Airport Advisory Board is not a decision maker on leases. So, used to, not currently. Because it was too much time. It was just a time. So just noting from a process standpoint there, I'll inquire and understand kind of what would make sense here. But I think we also want to just respect the time of everyone involved and the city attorney. And I understand that your goal is transparency and education there too. So I'll ask in that spirit and see what might make sense.
Yeah, it seems like the hangar leases are a big deal, and I don't really want to dig deep, but also the shooting in the dark. It seems like if we're the board and the hangars are a big part of the airport, I personally would like to kind of know what's going on there in general. I hear a lot of issues, and I don't really want to try to solve those issues, but I'm in the dark on it, and that's a big part of the airport, and I'd like to get at least a top-level idea. I mean, I hear Levi talk about we have a consultant that came out and was working on hangar leases. I misunderstood that, but I'm like, what's going on? And I'm naturally a curious guy, and maybe I'm out of bounds here, but it's a big part. It's a big part of the airport. We're on the board. We should have a clue about what's going on there, and maybe we don't have a say in it. But geez, and that's not really directed at you, Levi. It's just a comment to everybody. Going, it would be good for your board to be informed on how this operation's being run.
And as that moves forward, that will come to this board. At this time, the airport has just been asked to look into leases. We're still in the middle of the process, still gathering information. And when we have information together for the board, we will bring it to the board.
Yeah, and we
So we're at.
Yeah, all the leases used to come through this board. They were approved, so it just became like one more step in a process that we weren't holding up anybody's leases. We hadn't negotiated them, so they eliminated the need for them to come through us since I've been on the board, and they just go straight to council for consideration.
Yeah, I'm just talking about lease policies.
Yeah, you're talking about.
I don't want to look at individual leases.
Yeah,
Just
me either.
what's our policy? Is it 30 years? Is it 10 years? What are we doing? What's our strategy? What's our direction? And I know we probably don't get to decide that, but I think we should understand it and make recommendations. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's just, maybe I'm belaboring the point. Thank you.
No.
So this is where all of you are out of order by being curious humans. And that's extremely problematic here. No. No, I understand where this is coming from, and I guess I might remind this board, because I understand where this tension's arising from, and I felt it at times too, being a board member. You're not, the Airport Advisory Board does not run the airport, right? And while council does ask the Airport Advisory Board, and sometimes the Airport Advisory Board does offer advice on how to consider operations or policies related to the airport, we have an airport manager who runs the airport, and we have staff, professional staff who support the airport manager on that. Council sets policy that would indicate or dictate how that goes, and potentially seek at times the Airport Advisory Board's input on how to shape that. Where we're running into this tension here, and it's to no fault of anyone here, is that there are some folks who want to try to learn more about some of the things that we've heard about, and also not formal council direction to explore some of these topics or any of those topics. And that's to no fault of your own in any way, shape, or form, but does reflect some of the tension in these advisory board meetings. And I'll just give you a completely different board that I've seen as a liaison now, like the Sustainability Advisory Board. Sustainability is an extremely broad topic. And I happen to have a master's degree in it, and it's an extremely broad topic. And there are numerous topics that board members might want to bring up at different times. You could go in 15,000 different directions on that board, and it impacts so many different departments and operations and policies across the city. There's some level of containment that is sometimes needed, and it's a balancing act. It's not a clear answer, but I wanted to recognize where I understand this tension's coming from, and also try to recognize like where some of those limitations just might naturally exist, even though it might be frustrating.
I appreciate that. I'm going to get you, Charles. Oops, let's see. I'm going to go, Charles. Go ahead.
So maybe I misunderstood, but I thought I heard at a council meeting, council directed the airport board to review the hangar. So that's where I'm coming from, because I came into this job going, I'm going to be curious about a lot of things. I'm going to try to put guardrails on myself and only focus on things that we get direction from the council on. And that the efficacy of the volunteer noise abatement program, that's kind of why I went in on that. So I leaned into it. It's like, that was a direction from council. I'm trying to do a good job. I'm trying to stay in the guardrails. So yeah, I'm a curious guy, but I thought I heard them say, airport board, look into the hangar lease policy. And if I'm incorrect, and I'll try to re-look at that, I will back off and try to not be curious about things that I'm not supposed to. And I don't mean that cynically, and I'm not coming back at you, Matthew. I think we understand each other, and it's not really a tit for tat here. It's like I'm trying to defend myself a little bit. So if that wasn't a direction, my bad, and I'll try to stay within the guardrails.
I just appreciate that we're laughing.
Yeah, thank you.
No, I just think that we're curious because people are coming to us and complaining about it. So is it our duty to help educate them about the leases, or does the public, maybe they're used to us doing the leases and they just need to know that we don't have any control over that, and they need to take their concerns to city council and not to airport advisory board. So I think that's a lot of it too.
As much as the public is upset about things that happen in the air that we can't do anything about, we have to defer to the FAA. Yeah.
Yeah, to be clear, before, and this wasn't a knock on you, Board Member Shilling, I was speaking more broadly to a lot of topics. You're actually not wrong. Hangar lease lengths and hangar leases was a topic at our June 3rd meeting of this year, and my understanding is that when that is ready to come to this board, that will come with more information to help the board make an informed advisory opinion on that. So I think there's a lot of preparation. Maybe Levi can speak to the work that's ongoing there, but there was direction there. typically we would want a board to receive a briefing from staff to then provide input back to council on that. So you are not making decisions in the dark, so that you have that opportunity to ask questions at a kind of a specific meeting, and so that the public is aware when that topic might be discussed as well, if they want to specifically come on that topic. So I hope that assuages some of those concerns, because you were not wrong, and you are paying attention accurately to that topic, and maybe others as well. And we would not expect necessarily board members to have to do all of their own homework on that. From my past experience and experience on other boards as well, there are presentations that are given to the board, ideally a packet sent in advance, wink, wink, nod, nod, so that board members can have time to digest that information ahead of time and come prepared with questions, or ask you in advance via email as well. So that would be the ideal process when the board is being asked to actually advise on a specific topic directly.
Message received, be patient, but thank you.
No, thank you for asking.
And to that point then, leases equal money. So we would wrap in the financial aspect of those leases. If they're making them longer, what's the reason? I know what it is. It's businesses and amortization. But versus if you had two people vying for the same hangar or piece of land, and you had a 10-year lease versus a 30, which one are you going to favor, and which one's going to bring us more money? So that's our revenue generation, is leases and our beautiful cell tower. So again, that brings back in that financial aspect as well. And then staff would give us a beautiful presentation and slideshows and all kinds of stuff. So I do know we would have that. I will take that then as the cue to do something I told the mayor I would do, and that is to speak to the advisory board. And so this is very good timing. First of all, I need to remind myself and everybody that we are under sunshine law. So 3 or more people constitutes a meeting. So if you talk about any of this sort of thing at the granular level, it's fine to chat and research things. But if you're talking about at the next meeting, I'm going to do this, that can be 2 people from the board, but not more than 3. And then your information can be requested if you're having conversations, things like that. So that's the sunshine law. And then our board, I just wanted to go back, and it's not a very long read, I'll read it quickly, but our board consists of 7 members. A city council member is appointed. We all get to vote. We have 3-year terms. That's some of just the basic stuff. We only and provide recommendations to City Council on matters concerning long-range planning, land use, and improvements for the Vance Brand Airport. Duties of our board include reviewing and recommending a long-range master plan and financing plan for the airport. That's the request for the financials. Reviewing and recommending actions concerning leases, fees, and annual budgets for the airport. Developing and recommending annual goals and objectives for operation and development of the airport. Reviewing and recommending actions concerning the airport rules. Presenting an annual report concerning the status of the airport. Promoting the development and utilization of the airport pursuant to the adopted master plan and airport rules. Promoting awareness, utilization, and development of the airport pursuant to and consistent with the council's adopted goals and objective and master plan. We do not currently, we have an expired master plan. It expired quite a while ago, that we will be getting a new one in the next couple of years, and that's a Herculean effort. Our old master plan included extending the runway. I don't know what other developments, but that's the one, that was the biggie on there, was to extend the runway. That's probably not going to be on the next one. So to just say that we are doing what we're supposed to do, and we will seek more information to guide the things that we think about and how we analyze stuff. And this is on the city's website for boards and commission, and then the airport advisory board. And then the positions, there's a few changes on those. I'll turn that in to get that cleaned up.
Thank you. That was beautiful. I should know that. I didn't. And if you could, but I can go on the website. But if you could put that in the minutes as well.
Okay.
Because websites, is this 10 years old? Is this 5 years old? Our website's, not easy to navigate. So yeah, if that could go into the minutes, that would be great. Thank you.
And thank you. Any questions about any of that? Any final comments? As long as we've had a good laugh, I think I can adjourn. It's on my agenda. I don't have to. It's on my agenda.
You always bring that up.
I know everybody does, but that's my secret. That's my one thing I have. It's on the agenda. Did you have anything else? Oh, we didn't even.
I'm good.
I'm going to unsmack it.
I'm
'cause
good. I'm good.
I get hacked because I don't smack the gavel. But yeah, it's on the agenda, so
Yep.
I get to just call it. Did you have anything else to say, Levi?
Nope, all good.
You sure?
Yep.
Okay. Appreciate the input. Really appreciate the discussion, and I think we will get clarity because of all of this. And to Tara's point, it's rather paralyzing to have the public expressing how things are affecting them, and then us not feel like we have a way to do anything about it. So trust, I do. We have made a lot of strides, and with the VNAP and the awareness and the meetings, and it is a process and multifaceted, multi-layered, but we are chugging along at the speed of government with it all. So go us. We are adjourned.